read this morning from the book of Hebrews in the 13th, the last chapter of the book. I read the first 8 verses and then verses 15 and 16. Let mutual love continue. Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing that, some have entertained angels without knowing it. Remember those who are in prison, as though you were in prison with them. Those being tortured as though you yourselves were being tortured. Let marriage be held in honor by all, and let the marriage bed be kept undefiled, for God will judge fornicators and adulterers. Keep your lives free from the love of money, and be content with what you have, for he has said, I will never leave you or forsake you. So we can say with confidence, the Lord is my helper, I will not be afraid. What can anyone do to me? Remember your leaders, those who spoke the word of God to you. Consider the outcome of their way of life and imitate their faith. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever. Through him then let us continually offer a sacrifice of praise to God, that is the fruit of lips that confess his name. Do not neglect to do good and to share what you have, for such sacrifices are pleasing to God. Amen. It's good to be back. Good to be back with you, back in the pulpit and out of the pulpit. As I come to share with you some of the experiences that I've had. As John said, I do indeed have stories to share. You won't hear too many of them today. There are weeks to come. There's a presentation next week, and there's a sermon series yet to be preached, and so you'll hear stories, you'll see plenty of pictures. I won't show you all 7,000, I promise. But today I want to dig a little bit deeper into the passage that I just read. It's a passage from the book of Hebrews. If you know much about Hebrews, you know that most of the book is this kind of theological tome. It talks about the place and the role of Jesus kind of eternally, kind of cosmically, and this place in history as well. But then there's this last chapter, chapter 13, which doesn't sound a lot like the rest of the book at all. It almost sounds like the book of Proverbs. If you've spent much time in the book of Proverbs, you know it's kind of this, rapid fire, do this, and here's a good way to live, and here's a good way to live, and here's a good thing to do. And it's kind of what the end of Hebrews sounds like, doesn't it? It's almost as if, maybe you know this experience, a parent is sending off their child for summer camp. They've taught them all throughout their lives what to do and what not to do, but they're getting ready to send them off for a few weeks, maybe a few months, and so what do? Well, remember to brush your teeth, and remember to change your underwear, and remember to do all of these different things, kind of like the book of Hebrews does. Don't forget this, and don't forget this, and don't forget this, and do this. In the same way, we're being told as church, do this, and do this, and do this. A reminder, kind of in rapid succession, this is who we are supposed to be. And so in some ways, this isn't the sermon that I should preach this Sunday. It's the sermon I should have preached back in May, right before I left, right? Right before I sent you guys off to summer camp. But maybe it makes sense to preach it now. Because what do those same parents do when they get their kid back from summer camp? Well, did you brush your teeth? Were you nice to your tent mate? Did you change your underwear every day? You check in a little bit, right? You got to make sure they did what they were supposed to. And so this is maybe a good guide to ask, how do we all do? We don't have time for the entire chapter, but maybe a handful of the verses will stand out. Here's the first one. Let mutual love continue. Do not neglect hospitality to strangers, for by doing that, some have entertained angels without knowing it. And as expected, this summer, you guys knocked this one out of the park. You all were incredibly hospitable by all accounts to those who came to visit, to those who came to be a part of it. A Family Promise is perhaps one of the best examples. Back a couple of months ago, even with some crazy stuff with the building, I understand, you were bending over backwards to make sure our guests were made at home, were taken care of. And you may or may not know this, but we're kind of one of the favorites on the Family Promise rotation. Folks love our building. Folks love the showers and the fact that we let them use them. But more to the point, they love us. They always look forward to spending time with Wendy and Stacy and Ann and Joanna and all of you that come and give your time to cook, to be with, to play with the children. They love being here because they know that you love them, that you do this. Same way with the Boy Scouts. Troop 60 is about to celebrate 100 years of hospitality in this church. That's you. That's your mutual love to say this is an organization. And this summer you did the same thing. Just a few weeks ago, Pastor Cheryl was there on behalf of the congregation for an Eagle Scout ceremony. Cameron and Lincoln Edgecombe, perhaps you'll remember them from our pulpit for Scout Sundays in years past, stood up here again and received their Eagle Scout Award. Because you hosted them, because you did this. And there's a lot of this that goes on that a lot of us don't know about. It doesn't get broadcast from the pulpit a lot. Of just kind of quieter moments, people who get hosted, people who get taken care of, a Family Promise guest that needs a little bit more, or maybe a food pantry guest that needs a little bit extra care. And a lot of times it's the staff that takes care of that on your behalf because that's who you are. You live that way. You love that way. And the author of Hebrews says it because it's not a foregone conclusion that churches do this. It seems like that here, but it's not everywhere. I think about the old rule of Saint Benedict. Saint Benedict told his monks how they were to live, how they were to do church, basically. And one of the things that he tells them is treat every guest as if they were Christ. There's the story told of one of the old monks who, for years had received guests, had received visitors, had received people, and probably was a little worn out by it. But then there was a knock on the door in the middle of the night, and he drug himself out of bed and came and opened the door. It was a complete stranger, somebody he had never seen before, but he responded with a smile. "Oh, it's you again. Come in." It's Christ. Again, at the door, come in and be made welcome. Or as Hebrews says, maybe we're entertaining Christ. Maybe we're entertaining angels without even knowing it. That's what you did this summer because that's what you do. Thank you. Thank you for being the Hebrews church. A second verse. Let us continually offer a sacrifice of praise to God that is the fruit of the lips that confess his name, from verse 15. This is about worship. This is about coming together and gathering on a regular basis and worshiping, singing, offering a sacrifice of praise. And once again, you guys nailed it. You guys did an incredible job with worship this summer. If I've heard it once, I've heard it 1,000 times since I've been home, how wonderful worship was this year. Now, I admit I messed up. The conventional wisdom is when you go off on sabbatical, you're supposed to get preachers who aren't very good. Right? Because then you come back and you look great in comparison, right? You're like, man, we have the best preacher ever. I messed up. Because you all had some incredible preachers, some incredible worship led by some incredible people. I haven't had a chance to listen to all of the different sermons yet. I'll get to it. But by report, you all did this well. Continue to be a Hebrews church Well, I do want to say a special word of thanks to Pastor John, to Pastor Cheryl for the ways that they led ably in work, creating worship on a regular basis, giving their time above and beyond what they're used to. Jenny Purvis, who did some incredible behind-the-scenes work, as she always does. But, sometimes half of my time, 20, 30 hours a week, is spent creating worship, making worship happen, creating a sermon, etc., etc. This had to be done with me gone, and these were the folks that did it. And by all accounts, they did an incredible job. They helped all of you offer a sacrifice of praise. And they're to be thanked, and they're to be attended to as we thank God for the work that they've done. Thank you all. Thank you all of you that came to worship, those that were consistent worship, those that preached as a part of worship, those that helped organize worship services, because you continued to be a Hebrews church. Thank you. You did well. One more. Hebrews 13:7. Remember your leaders, those who spoke the word of God to you. This was an important summer for my family and me, a chance to get away for sabbatical, a chance to be together, just us. When I talk to my colleagues about sabbaticals, they tend to end up in one of two different camps. There's some colleagues that I talk to about sabbaticals that get this wistful look in their eye. They're like, "Oh, wow, you're doing what? You get to do what? You're able to do what?" And it's like, wow, that's not going to happen at my church. And there are a lot of churches that simply, or they say, well, maybe they will, but man, the guilt trip that I'm going to get on the way out isn't worth it. They simply don't see it as a valuable thing for pastor or for congregation. And then there's this other camp, a lot of colleagues that take sabbaticals, that appreciate sabbaticals, and churches that support sabbaticals because their denomination tells them they have to. The denominations have over time realized how healthy it is for the pastor, for the pastor's family, for the congregation, for the community as a whole. And so they make it required. And so the congregation sometimes begrudgingly says, okay, well, here's your, okay, you can do whatever. But then there's you guys. Churches like you all in the middle here, in the sweet spot. You understand that this is an investment in a long-term pastorate as well as in the congregation itself, and a chance to hear new voices, and aren't required to do it by somebody outside themselves. They say, no, this is how we will remember our leaders, and we will make that a priority. I am deeply thankful to a congregation in that sweet spot who does just that. Thankful to Joanna and the spiritual leadership team. I'm thankful to Sandy and the staff relations team. These are folks that have said, that have encouraged, that have helped organize, that have helped make all of this happen because they know, indeed, that this is an investment for a long time down the road. And I'm thankful to them for it. I'm thankful to all of you. I'm thankful that you treated this well. I wasn't getting texts every week, this happened, preacher, and you should have done this. It's like you gave me the space. And so my family and I appreciate it deeply. And now we appreciate being back with you because indeed, as we take that time to step away, we're able to see things in a different way. One last metaphor, perhaps. Do you guys know the game Mad Libs? The little piece of paper where you write down this list of words, like you ask everybody around. So name an adjective or name a noun or a name of somebody. And then you take all of those words and you flip over the page and you put them in order in this story. And the Mad Libs kind of creates this story around your words, right? I know this is very fresh on my mind because we spent a lot of time in the car this summer. And some of those hours were spent doing Mad Libs with each other as a family. Sometimes that's what the life of a pastor is like. You just see a word at a time. Oh, another Sunday. Oh, another Tuesday staff meeting. Oh, another Wednesday night. Oh, another time in the hospital, right? You just see this adjective or this noun or this word. But when you take a step back and you see the big picture, you see the whole story, you realize what a blessing it is to serve in a place like this, a Hebrews place like this, a place of hospitality, a place that knows how to worship, a place that remembers its leaders. And I don't know if you remember Mad Libs, but sometimes those stories can end up a little bit weird, right? It's kind of strange and meanders, like, well, that didn't make sense, but it's funny, right? The point is to laugh. And I think that fits for us too, right? We're a little weird, but we like it that way. We like being weird together. The world looks at us sometimes and thinks, well, that doesn't make any sense, but the Hebrews' weird way of being church is a good way. It's a healthy way. And you all knocked it out of the park. Thank you for who you are, for being who you are. Now, I don't want you to get a big head, right? We got to keep working. We got to keep doing this. We got to keep continuing to do Hebrews church. However, do so with your shoulders a little squarer, their back a little straighter, because you know that you do it well. Thank you. Thank you for your ministry to me, to one another, and to our community in the last 3 months and in the days ahead.